Hey Art 2 students, I started making an example of a project you will be starting. This video shows the first few steps of the process. Future videos will show you how to develop this artwork with value and shading. Before I show you the process so far, I want to talk about some of the goals and guidelines for the project. As you can see from the example so far, one of the things that we're going to be working with is symmetry, where things on one side of the artwork are the same as things on the other side of the artwork. I'm going to ask you to come up with interesting lines and shapes, careful and neat drawing lines, a nice even measured border, creating space and depth by overlapping shapes and objects in creative ways, using and getting better at different ways to shade and create value, creating value contrast, which means having a strong difference between values in your artwork, and creating texture contrast, which means having strong difference between textures in your artwork. Okay, I'm now going to show you how I got to this stage of the project. This video is kind of long, so feel free to watch it in stages as you work to complete your artwork. Okay, the first step is to measure and draw a border. So I'm going to walk you through that. On each side of your paper, you need to make a little mark. So we're going to do a 1/2 inch border right here. So this is the 1/2 inch mark right here. So I'm going to make a little mark. And then I'm going to come up here the other side of the paper, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. Find the 1/2 inch, so I started at the 0. I'm going to find the 1/2 inch, make a little mark. Then I'm going to draw a line connecting those together, and now this whole space, this whole side, is an equal distance away from the edge of the paper. I'm going to make my line, and then I'm going to go to each side and repeat that process I just did. Line up the edge of the paper with the start of the ruler, find the 1/2 inch mark, make a mark there, move my ruler down, do the same thing, make a line. Now up here you can see that it didn't connect. That's okay. I can just extend that out a little bit, and if it went too far on the other side, I can just erase it. Okay? So I do that on all sides. I'll speed up the video now so it doesn't take so long. Okay, now I have my border. Okay, the next step is to create a line of symmetry down the middle. And for that we have to do a little bit of measuring as well. So what we have to measure is the space inside of the border, so the length right here at the bottom. So it should be, if you did the 1/2 inch on this side and a 1/2 inch on that side, it should be 11 inches in between them. If you go from the 0 all the way over to here, it's 11 inches. And so 1/2 of 11 inches is 5.5. So right at the 5.5 mark, I'm going to put a little mark right there. And then I'm going to come up here to the top and do the same thing. Now I'm just going to take my ruler, line it up, and make a line. When I'm done with this design, I have the choice to erase that line if I want to. Also, you could have done yours this way if you want. I'm just going to do it this way because it kind of works with camera angles a little bit better. Okay, so now before I did this video, I prepared a couple of shapes that I cut out of construction paper. You can just use whatever scrap paper or board, even like a cereal box would work, and cut out a few interesting shapes. I can cut out more if I want to, but I could probably build the entire design with just a couple of shapes if I really wanted to, because I can use it in different ways. Okay? So the way this is going to work with a line of symmetry is I'm just going to decide where a shape goes on one side of the line of symmetry, and I'm going to trace it in that spot. Okay, so I traced that shape. Notice that I had it originally, so part of the shape went over the line, and so I'm just going to ignore that part of it. I'm going to treat it like this over here is the shape, but everything on the other side of the line is not part of the shape. And so now, for symmetry, I need to flip it over and do the exact same thing. So to make sure that I'm going to do that the exact way that I want to, I'm going to do a little precaution. Yeah, I don't know if you can see this on the video, but I'm going to make a line right where the line of symmetry intersects my black shape right here. And that's going to help me a little bit, even though I can't see it perfectly well. You can even fold it right there. I have to flip it, so I wouldn't be able to see the line perfectly, but it helps me know where to fold it. And then I need to flip it and put it on the other side. The trick too is making sure that everything looks the same. So like the distance from here to here is the same as it is from here to here. And trying to make sure the angles make sense. You know, don't want it to be angled up like this or angled down like that. That wouldn't be correct. You want to kind of make sure that this point over here lines up evenly with the point on the other side, like it's not all wonky or anything like that. So when I get it where I think it should go, comparing the different spots, making sure that they look the same, tilt it just a little bit, and I think that that looks right, then I'm going to trace it again. Okay, so now I have both things on both sides. It's a pretty much perfect flip. The more accurate I can be with how I flip it over, the better, because as I build new shapes into this artwork, everything has to match up, and the more you do it, if anything is off, then it'll show up even more how it's off when you add more shapes. So hopefully I've got it right. Now I can continue using this shape if I want to. I can add it in here in different ways. So like I can just turn it around, maybe add the shape like that. You know, there's just lots of things I can do. So I think I'm going to add it like this. Okay, so I stopped when it reached the border. What I should maybe do, just to help myself out, it just kind of helps me understand where I need to put it. Might have to do the folding thing again. Now I'm going to put it over here. And what I'm going to look for is just comparing, like, is it the same distance across? Is it the same closeness to this other shape? Is it, you know, this little horn right here, this little point, is it the same amount sticking out? There's other things I can do to help myself make sure that it's measured correctly. So I could take a ruler, and by the way, you can just use anything that's straight. It doesn't actually have to be a ruler. And I'm measuring from here to the middle line, and I know that that's right there, so I used my pencil to make a mark to just show that distance. Then I can copy that over here, and then it's going to help me line it up, hopefully. But even though I did that, I still want to kind of compare and look, make sure that it looks right. Okay, I think I'm going to switch shapes now. And I'm just going to start moving around and doing different shapes in different places. Each time I do it, I'm going to make sure that I flip the shape and then I line it up in the same area over here as I did over here. Just got to make sure I flip the shape. Notice that so far I've only used 2 shapes, but I've used them in different ways. So sometimes I just use the corner of it. Sometimes I use a bigger chunk of it, but so far I haven't used the entire shape of any of these yet. I'm just moving them around and repeating them in different ways. But if I get bored of these shapes or think that there's not another way for me to use it creatively, I can go cut some other shapes. Sometimes I have to be creative with my problem solving. So I want to make sure that this shape over here is going to be repeated the same as it was over here. It's a little bit difficult because of the way that I did it. So this time I'm going to use the ruler to kind of help me make sure that it's in the right spot. So I'm using the ruler and making sure that the ruler is parallel with the border. Parallel, math term for you. And that it also lines up with the point right here. And so what I should be able to do is I should be able to just move down that point until it lines up with that. But again, I have to kind of make sure that this is parallel, and that goes in the right spot, that's in the right spot. I want you to kind of notice too how sometimes I'm making things look like they're going behind other things, and that's on purpose. I can also, if I want to, make lines intersect with other lines. So like, let's say I want to come over here and I want to trace that shape right there, and I'm just going to trace all of it, and even where it goes through another shape, I'm just going to go straight through that. And that's a creative choice I can make. And if I did that, what would end up happening is I would have multiple shapes kind of intersecting together. But I'm going to choose not to do that. It's not really the look I want to go for at the moment. Okay, at some point I have to say that there's enough shapes, like shapes that I trace. Maybe I'll go in and do just segments of lines, but not actual full-on shapes. Like I might break up larger shapes by just kind of cutting them in half in different ways with segments of these lines. Sometimes it's hard to figure out how to repeat the line or the shape on the other side. So again, you know, you can creative problem solve to make sure that you're getting it right. You can measure down the lines where they intersect with or overlap with other shapes. Some of it might just have to be a guess, like a really close guess. Okay, so now I think I'm going to be done with tracing shapes, which is good because I actually don't like that very much. I mean, it's nice and it's easy, but when I'm doing the video of it, kind of difficult. Now I can make this design even more interesting just by drawing into it. I can make certain areas more complex, adding shapes, but it's not going to really require me to trace shapes. I'm just going to go around and add stuff, add different shapes that I want to, and I'm just going to make sure that I do the same thing on the other side. It's a little bit easier now because I don't have such a big area to work with, and I can just kind of focus on small areas. With this particular shape, notice how I tried to get it the same. It's not quite there yet, I still need to play with it. But I tried to get it the same by kind of drawing a light line across. I go straight across. And again, I think that I need to play with that just a little bit, but it helps me to kind of figure out where things should go. Alright, so what I've also done is I've printed out a few things that I want to incorporate into this design somehow. And I have thoughts about how I'm going to do that. I know you probably don't have the capability of printing, but most of you have access to the internet, especially if you're watching this video, and so you can Google different images and stuff. So I am going to use these pictures as inspiration. I'm not necessarily going to copy all of it. I'm just going to kind of see how different shapes work, see what kind of details are involved, and see the structures of different things, and then I'm going to make it up how I want to make it up within this picture. And the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to use these subjects as a way of creating a sense of space in this abstract artwork. Right now this is pretty much purely abstract. It's just a collection of shapes and lines, and there's nothing really realistic about it, but I'm going to add in these realistic elements, and just like I have overlapped some of these shapes in here, I'm going to do the same thing with those realistic subjects. I'm going to weave them in and out of the design in different ways. And also, so far, this is completely symmetrical. So everything on one side is the same as everything on the other, which is great. But now I'm going to go away from that a little bit, and I'm going to add these things in here how I want to. So if I add a leaf over here, it doesn't mean that I have to add a leaf over in the same spot. I'm now going to kind of go away from the symmetrical idea and kind of just add stuff where I think it will look interesting. So I'm going to speed up the video, and you can just watch me draw this stuff out really fast. Okay, so for now, I think that I'm going to decide to be happy with the direction that I am heading with this artwork. So overall, it's still symmetrical, but I have added in things that are not symmetrical. And there's still some little things to do, like I forgot to erase these lines. And by the way, like I chose to make these things weave in and out of my shapes in an illogical way, like they don't actually make sense. Like sometimes the shapes look like they're holes, and sometimes the shapes look like they're solid shapes. And so it doesn't actually make exact sense, but it's still going to look interesting. It still looks like in some places it's weaving in and out of shapes, and it's things are behind other shapes. And when I add in the shading, it's going to come to life even more. And so we will see that process unfold in a different video.